A very warm welcome in the class of Mathematics 3 in the module of Propositional Calculus in the topic of Predicate Logic. Myself Upok Bhattacharjee, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics, JIS College of Engineering. The prerequisites for this topic I am going to share with you now, but before that I just want to say that have you heard this term called predicate except mathematics? The answer is yes. You have in the grammar of English, you have some terms called subject and predicate. As mathematics deals with logic, we are also going to give you some similarity of today's topic with that particular idea. Now I am going to share with you the prerequisites, and the prerequisites are nothing but the propositional calculus. Propositions are required. Logical connectives are also required. Disjunction, conjunction, negation, implication, biconditional, and a little idea, though it is not directly required over here, but if you have some idea on normal form, it will be better to proceed. So let us start into the main topic. I have given you some rule of inferences and their names and their connected tautological expression, but I am going to express one by one everything over here. This is just for your reference. Now before going into that, I just want to say that when you are taking a sentence, it is the collection of some words. The part of those sentence, that means the words which actually describes the nature or the properties of that subject in that sentence, that is actually termed as predicate. So it will be more clear if I give you some example of a sentence, and if it is related to mathematics, it will be relevant. So suppose I have a sentence x greater than 8. So who is subject here? Here subject is x. Then who is predicate? It is the predicate greater than 8. So it means that we can use the notation px for the statement x greater than 8. It means it termed as propositional function. Okay, and in this function, who is the variable? Here variable is x. That means px is a propositional function of variable x, and for a fixed value of x, Px becomes a proposition. That means it will have the truth value, either true or false. But for Px, there is no truth value. Now look at this. If you take x equal to 4, then P4 gives you 4 is greater than 8, which is false, and x equal to 10, P10 gives you 10 greater than 8, the status is true. That means P4, P10, they are all propositions, but Px is propositional function. So whenever we are talking about a function, in your childhood days also you can recall, we are talking about domain and range. So here also we are now going to describe that what is the meaning of domain here. Domain of what? Domain of a propositional function. So there is another name of this domain. It is called universe of discourse. Clear? It is another name. So the set of all possible values that may be substituted in place of the variable px is called domain of the propositional function. So if I take the previous example px, which gives you x greater than 8, all possible cases of x creates a set which is nothing but the domain of px, and it is very much clear that in the previous example you can put x equal to 4, you can put x equal to 10. In one case the px is coming as p4 whose status is false, and another case p10 was coming whose status is true. But nevertheless, irrespective of this truth status, x can be substituted in place of px. So 4 will be in the domain, 10 will be in the domain. So what will be the domain of this propositional function? The domain of this propositional function is nothing but we can take the set of real numbers, because in case of set of real numbers we can take any real number and we can put it here to make this comparison done, or rather make this sentence verified. Now one can set that suppose one set is taken a is equal to 1, 2, 9 and 10. Okay, so we may think that x assume the values from this set a 1, 2, 9 and 10, then a becomes universe of discourse, because you are considering only this one, and for this case we are calling it as universe of discourse. Clear? So we can give some more example. I am just giving you one task for your practice, that if we consider the relationship x square plus y square equal to 4, obviously it is known to you that it is a circle with radius 2 centered at origin. Now this propositional function is defined on two variables, and you have to think for those particular things which can be substituted over here, that will be its domain. But in between them, some of will be true, some of will be false. So what will be the domain of this one? The domain or the universe of discourse of this one will be set of real numbers cross set of real numbers, means R2 basically, means this plane. Okay, now we are going to start another thing which is called rule of inferences, because ultimately using some logical senses, developing some logical ideas, where we are going to use, we have to infer something. So for this we are now going to discuss the thing which is called rule of inference. First one, addition. So what does it mean? P gives you the inference P disjunction Q. Then comes simplification, means look at this, why it is addition, because we know that disjunction is termed as sum, so it is termed as addition. So P gives you the inference P or Q, clear? But in the reverse case, in simplification, if you have P and Q, means P conjunction Q, then you can get the decision P, clear? Then modus ponens. What is the meaning of modus ponens? Look at this. Here we are taking the combination of two statements, P and P implies Q. These two together with gives you Q. And modus tollens, it gives us negation of Q and P implies Q, together it will give you negation of P. I will give you the example of Cristiano Ronaldo, CR7, and his attitude towards or passion towards football by some logical inferences after this particular discussion. Okay, so now after modus tollens we are getting disjunctive syllogism. These are some names only. What is disjunctive syllogism? It tells us that P disjunction Q and negation of P together with gives you the conclusion Q. And next one is hypothetical syllogism. This gives you P implies Q, Q implies R, P implies R. You got this particular idea in various cases like transitive relationship, but here it is termed as hypothetical syllogism. Then we are getting another one which is called conjunction. Conjunction is also an operator, you know that, but here if P and Q are given, then conjunction will be P and Q. The next one is constructive dilemma. What is this constructive dilemma? This is P implies Q and R implies S, this is our first one. Then P disjunction R. These two together it gives you Q disjunction S. Okay. Keep all these rules in your mind, because otherwise where we are going to use these rules will be clear to you in this class. Then it will be difficult for us to recall, and then we can give destructive dilemma. Destructive dilemma gives us P implies Q and R implies S. Negation of Q, disjunction, negation of S. Here P disjunction R was there. Here Q and S is taken in the negation part. This will give you the conclusion that negation of P disjunction, negation of R. Here. So now we are going to check that why we have learned this and where we are going to show it. So now I am going to give you one very interesting example. So now a story is stated. If today is Tuesday, then I have a test in CS or suppose economics. If my economics professor is sick, then I will not have a test in economics. Obviously, who will take the test? Today is Tuesday and my economics professor is sick. Therefore, I have a test in CS. So if you just go through this story, then is it not very much clear that obviously I have a test in CS, but how you will prove that your conclusion is correct? What is the mathematics behind it? How mathematics will support your claim? This is the role of logic, mathematical logic comes here. So we will construct these simple sentences from here. Today is Tuesday. I am making it by T. I have a test in CS. I am making it by CS. I have a test in economics. I am denoting it by E. And then economics professor is sick. Yes. So these sentences, if I want to represent the thing in logical manner, if I call it as logical representation, how it looks like. Look at this. First one tells us that if it is a Tuesday, then I have a test in computer science or economics. Second one tells us if my economics professor is sick, then I will not have a test in economics. Then the next one tells us that today is Tuesday and my professor is sick. And the conclusion they are making that I have a test in CS. So this is my conclusion. How to support, how to check whether it's correct or not. So look at this. What we can get, we can write that from 3, that means this one, by simplification. Simplification is just discussed in the last slide. Simplification is nothing but P and Q gives you the conclusion that P is true. So this is the simplification. So by simplification from 3, what we can get, T, I can get T, or I can get S also, P and Q, P. So Q and P, if I write, then it will be Q. So T and S, and I am marking it by equation number 4 or relation number 4, and I am marking it by 5. Clear? Now from 1 and 4, what is there is 1, this one, and 4 is T. So what property we can use? We can use here by modus ponens. Modus ponens tells us what? Modus ponens tells us that P implies Q and P means Q. Clear? So by applying modus ponens for 1 and 2, P implies Q and P, then Q. So we will get CS disjunction E. And suppose we are marking it by 6. Then from 2, because 2 was remaining, 2 and 5 we can take, and again by modus ponens is this one, and 2 is P implies Q and P, so it is Q. So negation of E, and we are making it by 7. Now from 6 and 7 by disjunctive syllogism. What is disjunctive syllogism? Disjunctive syllogism is P disjunction Q negation P, it gives you the conclusion Q. Okay, so by disjunctive syllogism from 6 and 7, what is 6? 6 is this one, P disjunction Q, and 7 is negation of P. So disjunctive syllogism gives us CS. And what is CS? CS means I have a test in CS. Thus we can say it is a valid argument. By the way, what is argument? Argument is nothing but P1, P2, Pn gives you P. All these are taken into consideration. Then this implies P will be a tautology. So it is not the very difficult thing. It is a simple one, but it actually applicable in the context of inference. Now, inference is okay, and we are making it inferences from true concept, tautological concept. That is why the tautological representation was given in the first formula. If you see, look at this rule of inference and what is the tautological representation of this inferential rules is given. But what we are now trying to say is that if it is not true, means there is another term which we also have to learn, that is fallacy. And the fallacy can be done by two ways. First one, fallacy of affirming the consequence. That means what is happening, what is the consequence of the whole incident, we are affirming this consequence and we are getting a fallacy. So what is the example? So it is something like that: P implies Q. Who is the consequence? Q, and we are affirming Q, but no conclusion can be drawn. Example, I have committed you, that I will give some example from CR7. So I am writing this: Ronaldo scores a goal, implies he is excited. Okay, write it in fresh. We know that how much excitement he is having after scoring a goal, but it is your P now and it is your Q. Now you are saying that Ronaldo is excited. Does it imply that Ronaldo scores a goal, or does it imply that Ronaldo does not score a goal? Ronaldo can be excited if his co-player scores a goal. So if you affirm the consequence, it will not give you any conclusion or inference, then it is termed as a fallacy. And similarly, we can get fallacy by another choice, that is fallacy of denying the antecedent. Antecedent means the previous one. So what is the structure? This P implies Q and it is the antecedent. So negation of P, there will be no conclusion. So again the same example I am taking and I am trying to make this thing explain to you. That is, Ronaldo scores a goal and he is excited. Now if you take the negation of P, that means here P is Ronaldo scores a goal, that means Ronaldo does not score a goal. Okay, but he can be excited because his co-player scores a goal, or he can't be excited that he and his co-player both misses the goal. So denying the antecedent, you can't get any conclusion. So this is the concept of fallacy. Now a very important task I want to give you. You please take this P and Q and construct these particular rules for that P and Q and check every rule of inference, and you can take another statement as the coach is happy as your R. So you can take P, Q, R and you can test all the rules of inference. Then you will be boosted by your ideas. So now for today's session it is over. We will just give you some references, the same references what we are using for this class, for this module, as well as some assignments will be given, and these assignments are very easy assignments. Please try to complete all these within stipulated time. So finally I want to thank you all for your kind cooperation for constructing this class. Happy listening, happy learning.